Danielle Weaver was, by most outward appearances, living a life many would describe as stable. She was 29 years old, a teacher, a wife, a mother, and someone entrusted with one of society's most important responsibilities, educating and guiding teenagers during some of the most vulnerable years of their lives. But long before her name would appear in headlines, long before investigators would begin asking questions, Danielle Weaver had a past, a childhood that, like many others, helped shape who she would become. Very little has been publicly documented about her early life, but like most educators, her path likely followed a familiar pattern: school, college, training, certification, a decision somewhere along the way to stand in front of a classroom and teach. For many teachers, that decision comes from a genuine place, a desire to help, to inspire, to make a difference. And for a time, it seemed Danielle Weaver had done just that. She eventually found herself working as a 9th grade teacher at Lee County High School in Leesburg, Georgia. Freshman year, a critical transition point in a student's life. New environment, new pressures, new expectations, and teachers at that level often play a key role in shaping a student's direction. Inside the classroom, everything may have appeared normal: lesson plans, assignments, daily routines. But outside of that structured environment, things, according to investigators, began to shift. At some point, boundaries, clear, professional, and necessary, were allegedly crossed. And when boundaries are crossed between a teacher and a student, it is never just a private matter. It becomes a legal issue, a safety issue, and a betrayal of trust. Because the role of a teacher is not just to educate, it is to protect. And by early February, something had already gone wrong, something serious enough that it would soon be reported. On February 3rd, everything changed. That was the day authorities say the alleged inappropriate contact was officially reported. A report like that doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It often follows whispers, suspicion, concern, sometimes from a student, sometimes from a parent, sometimes from someone who notices behavior that doesn't feel right. And once that report was made, the situation moved quickly into the hands of investigators. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, a state agency responsible for handling serious criminal matters, became involved. Cases involving alleged misconduct between teachers and students are handled with urgency because they involve minors, power dynamics, and the potential for ongoing harm. Investigators began gathering information. This typically includes interviews, digital evidence, communication records, statements from those involved. While the exact details of the investigation have not all been made public, what is clear is that authorities believed there was enough evidence to move forward. By February 17th, just 2 weeks after the initial report, arrest warrants were issued. The charges were serious: child molestation, improper sexual contact with a student under 18. These are not minor accusations. They carry severe legal consequences and permanent social stigma. At that point, Danielle Weaver had a choice: be taken into custody, or turn herself in. The very next day, she made that decision. She turned herself into authorities, a moment that likely marked the beginning of a completely different reality. From teacher to defendant, from authority figure to someone now being investigated and charged. Shortly after, she was released on a $50,000 bond. But even though she was no longer behind bars, nothing about her life would be the same again. Because in cases like this, the legal process is only one part of the story. The personal consequences are just beginning. News of the arrest spread quickly. Cases involving teachers and students often attract intense public attention because they strike at something deeply uncomfortable: trust. Parents trust schools, students trust teachers, and when that trust is broken, the reaction is immediate and often unforgiving. In the wake of the arrest, the school district confirmed that Danielle Weaver was no longer employed. Whether through termination or resignation, her career in that school system was over. But the impact didn't stop there. It extended into her personal life, her family, her home. According to reports, her husband filed for divorce and sought custody of their children. That decision speaks to how serious the situation had become, because when legal accusations reach this level, they don't stay contained in courtrooms. They affect relationships, reputation, and the future of everyone involved. Meanwhile, investigators continued their work. Although interrogation details have not been publicly released, cases like this typically involve formal questioning. These interviews are structured, recorded, and often focused on timelines, communication, and intent. Investigators may ask, when did the contact begin? How did the relationship develop? Were there messages, photos, or meetings outside school? In many cases, digital evidence plays a critical role. Text messages, social media interactions, call logs. These pieces can build a timeline, one that either supports or contradicts statements made during questioning. Without publicly released transcripts, it's not possible to quote exact exchanges. But what is certain is this: by the time charges are filed, investigators believe they have enough evidence to present the case in court. And once that process begins, it moves beyond speculation into the legal system, where every detail is examined, every claim is challenged, and every decision carries weight. As the case moves forward, many questions remain unanswered. What exactly happened? How did the alleged relationship begin? And perhaps most importantly, could it have been prevented? Cases like this often force communities to confront difficult truths about oversight, about boundaries, about how authority can be misused. For students, especially those in vulnerable stages of development, the presence of a trusted adult can be influential. That influence can be positive, or, in cases like this, allegedly harmful. For Danielle Weaver, the road ahead is uncertain. Legal proceedings will determine the outcome of the charges, and until that process is complete, she remains accused, not convicted. But regardless of the final verdict, the consequences are already significant. A lost career, a fractured family, a reputation permanently altered, and for the student involved, an experience that may have lasting effects. Because beyond the headlines and legal terms, cases like this are not just about laws being broken. They are about people, choices, and the impact those choices have on others. In the end, this story is not just about one teacher. It's about responsibility, boundaries, and the importance of protecting those who are placed in positions of vulnerability. Because once that trust is broken, it cannot simply be restored. It leaves questions, consequences, and a story that continues long after the headlines fade.